taken during the next decade
channel.
will be pivotal if we are to limit global temperature rise to no more than 1.5 degrees centigrade. And in fact, given the global temperature records of the last couple of years, we may have already reached this threshold. So if we're not to exceed this target, we must take swift action to fully decarbonize the energy system, electrify as much as possible all end-use sectors, and find other ways to decarbonize hard-to-abate sectors that cannot be electrified.
Thank you.
With all this, we must still
yes, of course. So Serene testing the English channel. Can you hear me? Does the sound clear? Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Continuing to increase rather than decrease as they should be. This is increasing the risk of further impacts of climate change. COP28 marked an historic milestone in global climate mitigation negotiations with the UAE consensus. This consensus includes targets for tripling renewable energy capacity and doubling energy efficiency by the year 2030. Over 130 countries have committed to advancing the energy transformation by agreeing to this consensus. So today's event aims to provide a platform for leading experts to discuss strategies for accelerating this transformation. For today's event, Director Raul Alfaro Pellico will first provide a scene-setting presentation to stimulate discussions on the 100% renewable energy target. Following his presentation, my co-chair, Rainer Henrik Ralvis, to my right, will then moderate a panel discussion which will be followed by interventions from the floor as time permits. Director Raul, welcome to the floor for your scene-setting presentation.
Thank you, Stefan, and good afternoon. I hope you had a good but rushed lunch. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session on policy recommendations for achieving 100% renewable energy by 2050. So let's just dive into the numbers. As you have heard several times throughout these days, the UEA consensus that took place at COP in Dubai was a landmark decision with 130 countries really ambitiously
English testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3. Sí, vale, vuelvo a español.
And as you have seen in 2023, there was a significant acceleration of global renewable capacity, where 473 gigawatts were reached and added to renewable power capacity. And this accounted for almost 86% of new power generation capacity added, and also represents a 14% year-on-year increase.
Yes, sure. Just a second. Testing. This is the Arabic booth speaking through the English channel. I hope I'm sounding loud and clear. Very good morning again.
Also geopolitical developments.
Thank you so much. Have a splendid day.
As well as falling costs. Now, I think it's an important point to mention about other aspects of the energy transition, because of course a significant part of this is attributed to solar. In fact, 73% of that. But there is a role for other technologies. So, for example,
switch to English channel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Russian to English channel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it okay? 1, 2. Okay, I switch off.
Followed by battery storage, which is expected to see exponential growth, with capacity projected to increase from 86 gigawatt in 2023 to as much as 900 gigawatt by 2030. Now, with the electricity system transitioning from one where large baseload power plants traditionally provided the least cost source of electricity to one where more distributed system of variable renewable energy technologies, primarily solar and wind, are fulfilling that role, there is significantly a need for upgrading and modernizing market designs, grids, and the role of energy storage here. It's increasingly important. So these are some of the key enablers for the energy transition that will be critical to achieve the UEA consensus.
This is Russian Oleg's testing English channel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This is London. This is London. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you. Thanks.
To identify the technical challenges and solutions for achieving 100% renewable energy in the power sector, while also maintaining security and affordability in the supply of electricity. These technical challenges are really associated to the capacity of the power system to match
Sure.
supply and
Switch
demand
to English, into English. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Now, the complexity of the transition towards 100% depends on the target system's design, its dominant renewable energy sources, as well as the time frame over which the target is applied. So these aspects, together with the possibilities of leveraging interconnections to diversify and facilitate
English, 1, 2, 3. Jin speaking. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing.
the needs and the effort to meet the
Thank you.
targets. In power systems with predominant dispatchable renewable energy resources like bioenergy or hydro or geothermal, the availability of energy to continuously meet the demand through a year may be the major challenge to meet 100% targets. Now, in most systems, the main generation resources are expected to be solar and wind energy. And the use of technology is not yet deployed at large commercial scale, may be required in several cases to meet 100% renewable energy target. An upcoming technical brief from the agency is to be released in the first half of this year, which will explore these important topics in detail. The IRENA Coalition for Action, operating under the agency secretariat, is a key multi-stakeholder platform which brings now over 170 major players, non-state actors from the private sector, civil society, research institutions, and intergovernmental bodies. The mission of the coalition is to foster dialogue between governmental and non-state actors and to drive collaborative solutions for the global energy transition. Under the coalition, members are developing deliverables to further the discussion on 100% renewable energy systems. So let me begin with the definition of the 100% renewable energy system that has been proposed by the IRENA Coalition for Action. Renewable energy encompasses all renewable energy sources, including bioenergy, geothermal, hydropower, ocean, solar, and wind energy. So 100% renewable energy means that all sources of energy to meet all end users' energy needs in a certain location, region, or country are derived from renewable energy resources 24 hours per day, every day of the year. Renewable energy can either be produced locally to meet all local end-use energy needs, power, heating, and cooling, and transport, or can be imported from outside of the region using supportive technologies and installations such as electrical grids, hydrogen, or heated water. Any storage facilities to help balance the energy supply must also use energy derived only from renewable energy sources. Now, building on the success of the last report from last year's assembly, which shortly was out, hopefully no clouds and rain today, we chose to delve deeper into the policy recommendations needed for 100% renewable energy system for release later this year. We look at the key messages to build on the energy transformation towards 100% renewable energy, which will center around policies, technologies and infrastructure, as well as financing. Our primary policy focus areas is developing targets, incentives, and regulatory frameworks to accelerate the deployment of all available renewable energy technologies. We believe that the global tripling target for renewables is an excellent stepping stone towards fully renewables-based systems. Now, the measures to accelerate renewables include stable and reliable frameworks, markets fit for renewables, access to finance for large and for smaller projects, and a level playing field, and much more. We see and we know that there is a discussion around fossil and nuclear phase-out strategies, which includes reshaping markets and networks that were designed for unflexible fossil and nuclear energy production and phasing out related subsidies, which are significant obstacles and market distortions and hindering renewables to compete on a level playing field. One also requires the development and deployment of necessary infrastructure for a renewables-based, eventually 100% renewable energy system. So this entails the transformation of existing infrastructure towards the requirements for resilient, flexible, and more decentralized energy systems that are fully driven by renewables, and often to a large extent by variable renewables. Finally, and importantly, finance for renewable energy projects, large and small, for utilities, as well as for citizens and communities, it's really needed. So on a global perspective, access to finance, technology, and capacity building is even more crucial precondition for emerging economies. This implies to create an enabling environment for ensuring adequate private and public financing for different types and size of renewable energy projects and enabling infrastructure. It also means a responsibility for developed countries to develop and support mechanisms and funds for emerging economies to significantly improve access to project financing, small or large. One element that is crucial all over the globe, developed and developing countries, it's not to forget about the importance of involving potentially affected citizens and stakeholders. This will certainly bolster public support for the transformation that we need. Thank you. In closing, looking forward to hearing the thoughts, experiences, and insights on how we can accelerate the energy transition and longer term, 100% scenario. All the leaders in these panels have already made significant strides, and so I'm looking forward to hearing the interventions from across the board. And on that note, I would like to express my gratitude for the continuous efforts of member states of the agency, as well as the IRENA Coalition for Action members who has made this event possible. And I would like to extend my thanks to all of you joining us today at lunchtime for a very important discussion. Back to you, Ren. You got next. Yeah, to you. Yep.
Okay, thanks Raul for your scene-setting presentation, actually opening part of the discussion already, putting forward work which has already been done. And so let me introduce myself briefly. My name is Rainer Hinrichs Rabes, difficult to digest even for Germans, but you don't have to try. I'm a vice president of the European Renewable Energies Federation, based in Brussels. Personally, I live in Germany, and I'm a co-chair of the Towards 100% Renewables working group of the IRENA Coalition, so closely involved in production of this event and also on some papers. And also thanks to my co-chair, Dave Rene, who started here the meeting. So this session which we are having will outline pathways towards achieving a 100% renewable energy future. This is what we're working for, or at least accelerating the transformation. And well, by 2050, we always say, I would say maybe earlier in some places, maybe later in others. And of course, ensuring energy security, socioeconomic benefits, and environmental sustainability. And of course, what we hear today will be discussed and included in further work of IRENA as an agency, and also as in the work of the coalition as the stakeholder, multi-stakeholder participation to the coalition, to IRENA. So on a final technical one before I get into the discussion and your contributions. One thing is, if you find anything noteworthy here, please use social media and use the hashtag IRENA15A. So please do. And of course, there are several social media you can use. And the other one is, we really have a full panel, 12 panelists, and already a few pre-registered participants. So you were told, I think, in preparation, limit your talk to 3 minutes, please. And of course, really try to do that, because otherwise you would be eating into the time of others who are here, and 15 minutes after this ends, we will be kicked out here. So with this, I look to Denmark, who is sitting at my right-hand side, and I am very happy to have the Undersecretary for Development Policy in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ole Tonke. And I have a question for you, like for all of you, and Denmark as one of the early adopters of renewable energies, of course. How is Denmark leveraging public-private collaboration to achieve climate neutrality, and of course including the transition towards 100% renewable electricity, and I may add maybe all energy later, by 2030, the electricity target. So please elaborate on what you are doing at that.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much also for, first of all, organizing this. This is more relevant than ever, especially in 2025, where we are moving into the COP of Belém, where it's the NDCs, and this goal of tripling renewable energy just needs to be brought forward in this discussion if we are to have any chance of reaching our objectives on this. So it is so timely that we are having this discussion. I believe Irina has a huge role to play in moving this forward and helping all countries trying to move in this direction with both technical input, insights, sharing information, etc., etc. So this is really timely. On what we are doing in Denmark, first of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about, because we have the electrification of Denmark is really going fast now. I mean, more than half of all cars being sold are now electric cars, and we see it all over society. So that means the demand for us to produce renewable energy is just really shooting up these days. The government has looked at the figures, and now we actually need both renewable energy onshore and offshore. Earlier we had a much more strong emphasis on offshore, but looking at the numbers, we need both on and offshore. So there's a new target of quadruple onshore renewable energy, and at the same time we will really push forward on our offshore ambitions as well. And we recently, in September this year, we had new renewable offshore giving power to 350,000 households in Denmark. I also want to mention the green hydrogen because that's also a key part of this electrification and using it, because we need to move to scale on many of these plants, and green hydrogen is a way forward to use that. So this is really high priorities for my government as such. We have the first tender out for green hydrogen of 1.25 billion Danish kroners, moving that forward. On public-private, because that was actually my main point, for us, we could not be where we are without the public-private partnership. We have completely opened the doors and the room for the private sector of Denmark, because the experience we have is that if we don't have a close dialogue with them, even
this
though
is Russian Alex testing English channel 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. Thank you. Sorry about delay. I thought just completely was distracted by the session. Sorry.
With new tenders of 3 megawatts or gigawatts, sorry, offshore wind, where again we need more dialogue with private sector. It all started some years back when the government decided to have the 70% target for Denmark in reductions, where the government sat down 14 sector-specific working groups, most of them with private sector CEOs as chairs, and they came up with more than 400 recommendations in both transport sector, one on energy, one on finance, etc., and for each sector saying this is what we need to do. So they are the majority of the recommendations are implemented now, and we are moving that forward. Finally, I wanted to mention at a global level, we have both GOVA as an alliance moving this agenda forward for everybody, and also specifically for Africa. We launched the APRA Alliance last year. It came into action, and already now we have seen a lot of positive feedback and results from that. But these are things that are really needed, that we need to do this together. And also APRA, they have included private sector, both from the global setting, but also the African private sector in this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Minister, for explaining what Denmark is doing for highlighting electricity, increasing need, and of course the importance of private-public cooperation and giving all the good examples. And also thank you for keeping close to the time limit, so this is fine. Thanks a lot. So our next panelist is from Kenya. We have the Principal Secretary, State Department for Energy, Alex Wachira Wenzel, so I hope I pronounce it more or less correctly. So given Kenya's ambition for renewable energies, what experience can you share in prioritizing your policies to enhance renewables, energy deployment, improve grid infrastructure, which is an important point, of course, and move to 100% renewable energy, which I understand is one of your ambitions, and in electricity you are already close to 90%, if I get things right. What is it how you will proceed with your policies, and what can you share with our audience?
Thank you very much. And I want to confirm that you did get the pronunciation of my name correct. It is Wachira. But I'll not attempt to pronounce yours. You already gave us a warning. Secondly, is to appreciate the partnership that we have had. And I can see my good friend Oledonke here. The last time I saw him were
now I am on the English channel. I'm on the English channel 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm on the English channel. I'm on the English channel 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm on the English channel. Okay, I switch off.
To scale up renewable energy development, Kenya has already set goals to achieve net zero by the year 2050, and we have already developed our energy transition and investment plan to drive our pathways to achieve this goal. We have also consciously taken measures to minimize the use of fossil fuels, and I want to confirm that as today, we are generating 92% of our power that is in the grid as renewable green power, which we hope to achieve by the year 2030 as a target. And that year 2030, we also want to achieve the SDG number 7, that is access to electricity. I'll speak about access much later, but we are also enhancing our attention to strengthening our energy efficiency across the domestic households, buildings, transportation industry, utilities, manufacturing, and agriculture. We are also strengthening the research and innovation in deployment of clean energy technologies, such as energy storage. And I am pleased to announce that we are hoping to have our first battery energy storage by the end of the year 2026. That is a year from now. We shall have 100 megawatts. Then through the PPP coalition, the private-public partnership, we also anticipate to add another 200 megawatts of PPP, of battery energy storage. Electric mobility is another area in which we are seriously focusing on. Carbon capture and storage. We are also improving the policy and regulatory framework to enhance renewable energy development, as well as renewable energy auctions. Actionable policy recommendation to support the government in achieving 100% renewable energy by the year 2050. Kenya has a wide range, is blessed with a wide range of resources that provide flexibility. We have hydropower, geothermal that gives us about 49% of our power, which is a very good baseload. We have solar, we have wind, and we have biomass. And we're also exploring green hydrogen, and we have already done the green hydrogen guidelines and regulations. We have already passed the regulation. In terms of electricity, remember that I did mention earlier that I'll speak about it. We are currently about 77% connected to the grid, both.
Hello again, Ainhoa. This is Elena on the Spanish channel, sorry, English channel. Can you hear me well? 1, 2, 3, testing. I will count to 10 so you can confirm that the line is okay. Lovely, thanks.
thanks to development partners including World Bank, AFDB, AFD, EU, EIB, they have been able to pool resources plus the government of Kenya, and that amounts to 281 million. That will help us now push the numbers from 77% to close to 85% in the next 2 years. As a matter of fact, we hope to connect about 1 million households in this year alone. In terms of grid enhancement, this is where we have a challenge. We have a challenge, and how we are tackling these challenges. We have our main generation sources mainly in the Rift Valley. That is mostly northern part of Kenya and central part of Kenya, using the hydros. But the other areas like coasts and western do not have generation. And so therefore we need to improve our grid by doing more transmission lines, which is where now we are hoping to bring on board private-public partnership so that they can be able to bridge the gap.
Testing the English channel, 1, 2, 3, testing. Can you hear me all right? This is a test for the English channel at Arena. Your meeting. Let me see. I think you're writing. Fantastic.
Next year, 114 mini grids in northeastern areas. These areas where we have an issue in terms of grid connectivity, and it becomes very expensive to join the grid. And lastly, on clean cooking, because we still have a target on clean cooking by the year 2028, we are doing a lot to enhance clean cooking so that Kenyans can be able to have dignity and reduce the carbon emissions as we are cooking. So basically, that is what Kenya is doing in terms of access.
Should I go to the English channel? Okay, testing the English channel, 1, 2, 3, testing English channel. Okay. Thank you.
Seem to be on a good way to achieve. So thanks for this. Our next panelist comes from a more northern region. This is Ditte Jørgensen, Director General at the European Commission, Director General for Energy. And so Ditte, I'm going to ask you, given you, and we both know the ambition of the European Commission, the 55% reduction target by 2030 and Fit for 55 package, Repower EU, so all these measures which are already in place, Net Zero Industry Act recently, could you maybe elaborate a little bit on looking forward, what will the new Commission, which has just started work, what will you focus on to advance and accelerate the transformation, to improve infrastructure, which is more and more important, to enhance storage capacities, which is growing up in the discussion, and of course all this in the light of the climate crisis. And also you try to please stay with 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Rainer. I will do my best, and let me start by commending Alex and Kenya for what you have outlined, the level of ambition, but not just the level of ambition, the ability to actually deliver and make
English channel. Testing English channel. Am I loud enough? Testing English channel.
What can be done. I think the partnership with Denmark, between Kenya and Denmark, is another good example of how we can make things happen, and that is what it is about. Also for Europe, you asked about the direction of Europe, the new European Commission having taken up office just a month ago, a new Energy Commissioner, Dan Jørgensen, who has been working closely with Kenya and others on global renewables and climate change. So we in Europe stay the course.
English booth.
We are committed to our.
Good morning. I'm speaking now through the English channel in the English booth. Thank you so much and wish you a splendid day. Thank you so much.
Energy efficiency and decarbonization of industry and households and transports. We do that not just because it makes sense in a climate, it's necessary in a climate context. It is also necessary for our economic security, for our competitiveness. It is necessary for our energy security. We have seen that our dependence on fossil has weakened us, it has put us at risk, and so there is need for change. For all these reasons, it is all coming together. So the focus really is on delivering and making it happen and implementing. We are fortunate in Europe that we have close cooperation, a common regulatory framework. You referred to some of it, Rainer, and so now the focus is on implementing and making that happen. If I shift my view from Europe to the global context, where the challenges are different in nature and more significant in many parts of the world. We have agreed together at COP28 here in the Emirates a bit more than a year ago to triple renewables by 2030 and to double energy efficiency by 2030. It's only 5 years away. And so this is where we need to focus and work together more closely to really help make that happen. I think following in the footsteps of Kenya and looking at what have you done, what works, how can one make it happen. We are deeply committed to that, not just because it aligns with our own policy objectives, but because it is a common global commitment and a necessity, and because we know that that global cooperation is the only way in which we can achieve what we want to achieve. It's also for that reason that our President Ursula von der Leyen has announced a global energy transition forum to try to lift this tripling, doubling commitment at COP28 from the paper and help make it happen in the real world by bringing countries together. Kenya and your leader is part of it, a number of other countries, and everyone is welcome to join, because it really is about coming together to make it happen, to make sure that we push, bring momentum, and that we monitor the progress towards achieving the 2030 targets. And then in addition to that, of course, championing the renewables for Africa, which is about access to energy for the many, access to electricity for the many people who do not have that. So yes, we continue the course in Europe entirely, and that course also entails a global commitment and global engagement to try to help make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing the passion and commitment of the European Commission to move forward in achieving climate neutrality by 2050 and all the measures you did. And also for highlighting some of the things often neglected in the discussion, like economic and competitive advantages of the transformation, and of course, energy security, which is a very important issue these days. Our next panelist is from China. It's the lead scientist of China Renewable Energy Engineering Institute, Dr. Zhang Zhao, hopefully pronounced halfway correct. So also for you, I have a question. Given China's policies, such as, for instance, the 14th Five-Year Plan for renewables, the renewable energy law, you have the action plan for climate and energy storage, what experience can you share with us here in your 3 minutes in accelerating the energy transition and deploying more renewable energy in terms of overcoming challenges, which are always there, of course, in particular, again, public-private cooperation, public-private cooperation is important. What can you share with this?
Thank you, Chair. And you can see we prepare a lot of materials to read. So, but you just I try to finish in 3 minutes. Actually, in recent years, China has made a great effort. As you can see, we to achieve its carbon goals. As of the November 2024. And China's installed capacity of renewable energy just approached 1,800 gigawatts. It's about 40% of the global total. And in 2023, the China's renewable energy sector provided more than 7 million jobs, which is almost half of the global total. However, we recognized that China's energy transition faced various challenges, including increasing constraints by the land and the environment, the difficulties in renewable power integration, as well as the risk of the stability of the power system. For facing these challenges, China aimed to build a new type of power system and has taken active measures. Firstly, I think there is strongly policy support, and over the years, China established a policy framework centered on the renewable law and continuously refining various of industry policies. And secondly, we embrace the planning and guidance. China has adopted 5-year plans and medium and long-term plans for energy and renewable energy development to strategically guide the energy transition. These plans shape the layout of the major energy projects and allow a allocation of the public resources and the direction of private capital investment. Thirdly, we built a new type of power system, as mentioned before, and I think the last one is also very important. We encourage participation from the various sectors. China's policies encourages and guide the participation from state-owned enterprise and the private enterprise and foreign investors to renewable energy development. So private enterprise are highly active in China's renewable energy market and driving strong market competition and innovation. So I think I can stop here. And as I promised, it's 3 minutes. And this is also another China's characteristic. If we promise something, we try to make it happen.
Thanks a lot for promising and making it happen, and of course for sharing the way of China is going towards development of renewable energy, including with development of public-private cooperation. So thanks for this. Our next panelist is from Uruguay, the National Director of Energy, Christian Nieves Chiang. So also for you, of course, a question from my side. Uruguay has achieved remarkable progress. We know that a large share of your electricity, I think 90% or so, is already from renewables, hydro to a large extent, if I'm not mistaken. So what kind of policy experience, policy recommendations could you share which were so successful in the past and which you would recommend, or what we could build on for deploying more renewable energies, and particularly, of course, in terms of what cooperation policies with private and public, neighboring countries, etc., could be important to overcome the remaining challenges. Please try. Thank you.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Ministry of Industry, Energy and Mining from Uruguay, I would like to thank you one more time for inviting me to participate in this event. Fortunately, over the past 15 years, Uruguay achieved a transformation of its electricity matrix that led us to reach more 98% penetration of renewable source and 99% last year. The success in the energy transition was the result of a political agreement involving all parties with parliamentary representation that promoted the decarbonization of the electricity sector and increase of subsidy through the aggressive incorporation of non-conventional renewable energy, complementary the historical participation of hydroelectric resource in the generation mix. The mechanism of the incorporation of renewable energy was based on the execution of auction assigning capacities per source to choose that were identified as being competitive with the source they were intended to displace. As a result of this process, measures were developed to important electricity generation for biomass, wind, and solar. In 2023, we have also legally recognized the long-term firm capacity of non-conventional renewable sources as their strength lies in the complementary of their source. Today, we are in the process of the second stage of the transformation with the objective of continuing to decarbonize the energy sector. In the framework, Uruguay presented at the end of 2021 is a long-term climate strategy by 2050, which was developed between 2020 and 2021 with the participation of actors and sectors involved in the development of the national inventory of greenhouse effects through the dynamics of workshop and in the process with the public consultation of the strategy. This aspirational strategy includes the generation sector 100% renewable and great challenges of decarbonization, the final consumption sector. We must continue to decarbonize our energy matrix, particularly in the transport and the industry sector, where fossil fuels dependency remains. Electric mobility and energy efficient are the top priority, especially given our renewable grid. Finally, we will propose a new political pact to the government taking office on March 1st with a perspective toward 2015, reaffirming the path of sustainability and incorporating the development of the green hydrogen economy and its derivatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing Uruguay's experience and pointing on the way forward, and also for highlighting, among other people as well, electromobility as an important aspect of what you are doing. Thanks for this. Our next panelist is from Germany. It's the Director for Energy Diplomacy, Climate and Security from the German Federal Foreign Office. It's Markus Hicken. And of course, Markus, also for you, I have a question. What policies, measures, regulatory frameworks, financial mechanisms, such as incentives, subsidies, are most effective from the German experience in rapidly scaling up renewable energy deployment, accelerating the transformation, etc.? You have the floor, please, for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Rainer. Dear colleagues, well, I would like to start by saying the energy transition is not just a technical challenge. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to unlock sustainable growth. It's an opportunity to create jobs. It's an opportunity to ensure energy security and to improve climate resilience. And as it was mentioned already several times now, the COP28 global stocktake, the UA consensus, the energy package prepares a clear pathway. But you know, and this is sometimes forgotten, we must implement it in its entirety. It is, it was, it is, it will not be a menu of options to choose from. We must implement it in its entirety. So what about the German experience? Well, a little bit of modesty, I would like to argue that 2024 was a good year for the renewables and the so-called Energiewende in Germany. We added 16 gigawatt solar power capacity and around 10 gigawatt of wind power capacity, and a further 11 gigawatt of wind turbines were awarded in tenders, so it will continue. The battery storage boom also continued in 24 with a capacity increase of nearly 50%, more to come. So now renewables contribute over 60% of Germany's power mix in 24. So we are on track. We are on track to reach the 80% envisioned by 2030. By the latest in 2038, we will phase out coal, and coal-based electricity production was at a historical low in 24. And despite all that shift, the power grid, our power grid is one of the most reliable one in the world. The outages averaged less than 13 minutes per household in 23. Renewables and green hydrogen will ultimately replace natural gas, as outlined, for example, in our hydrogen import strategy, and the work on our hydrogen core net begins this year. So what about international collaboration and support? We are driving a lot of bilateral and multilateral efforts to support the implementation of the COP28 outcomes. We have more than 40 climate and energy partnerships worldwide to foster knowledge exchange on policies and enable the transition. We are very proud, looking at my colleagues who spoke in the beginning, working together with Kenya and Denmark on APRA. We have the International Climate Initiative, partnerships like the NDC partnership, and work with several countries together in the so-called JET piece, providing technical, financial, and regulatory support to countries, especially in the global south. And I'm sure my colleague from GIZ will elaborate a little bit on that later on. mobilizing private finance is critical. And we have started the so-called Green Guarantee Group, which is designed to expand the use of guarantees, a vital but underutilized tool for unlocking private investments. And this forum is obviously also open to new members. We encourage other countries to join. So to sum up, energy transition is the most efficient and cost-effective way to reach net zero, and let's just do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Markus, for highlighting some of the success stories we see in Germany. And maybe I just point out particularly that you mentioned the power grid reliability despite or because of this high share of variable renewables in the system. This is quite an important thing to underline. Thank you for this. Now that we heard the countries who were invited and who are part of the panel, let's move to other sectors of renewable energy. We have representatives from the power sector, from technologies, from various parts of the energy system. So I start by just jumping from Germany further south to the desert to Karim McErby, who represents the DII initiative. And Karim, as you suspect, I also have a question for you. So, and I know that you are working on the demand side, but to a high extent. So my question, of course, goes in the direction, how does demand and supply interaction principles, how does this influence the transformation towards 100% renewable energy, particularly, but not only in hard-to-abate sectors and in end-use applications? What role do technologies play, policy incentives, financing? So maybe you try to give us your point in 3 minutes.
In 3 minutes, yes. Well, let's discuss maybe hard-to-abate sector then. So at DIA, we've been following a lot the development of green hydrogen and help our partners to connect between off-takers in green ammonia and green steel and electrolyzer producer. So we've been following different projects in different markets in the MENA region, but also outside. If I have to resume just to picture the challenges and the different solutions, because it's still something which is there are still moving parts, right? It's not the development of renewable energy. We kind of now understand how to build our infrastructure, and we need flexibility, which is today challenging in many different markets. In hard-to-abate sector, we still have the business model to create, and there are still tests ongoing with the private sectors. So hard-to-abate, there's transportation, aviation, and marine. And then there is the industry, and mostly industry which is using hydrogen. Hydrogen, you can use it, as a feedstock, and then you produce something which is, for example, synthetic fuel, and then you can transport it easily. Or you use the gaseous form of hydrogen, and that is another challenge. So I will address these different topics. So if you can produce, so aviation and marine, we understand that you need fuel. So you have batteries are coming actually in marine in China already for short-term transportation. You have that in the river and for small boats, but it's coming for bigger ones. And you have synthetic fuel and also biofuel. So synthetic fuel, green ammonia, e-methanol. And both of them, you need green hydrogen. For the industry, we understand also for the iron that DRI is an interesting trajectory. DRI means that you're going to reduce the ore using hydrogen, and then after you have electric arc. So you need both electrification and the molecule of hydrogen. That's another challenge. So let me address the economic challenge first, and then after I will talk about logistic. Economic challenge. You need to have green hydrogen at a price which is competitive with fossil fuel. There are two ways to look at it. The number one is, well, you take the fossil fuel prices as they are, and so you need to compete with them, against them. To compete against them, it's about electricity price. The green hydrogen price is driven by electricity prices. So all the models now are very clear. You need electricity price around $20 per megawatt hour that's the kind of price and so that you need. So that's why we are seeing most of the projects in desert region, where close to port, where you have the infrastructure and you have both wind and solar available. And so it could be like Spain, or we see Australia, Chile. MENA region actually is very well positioned for that, Oman. So if you produce electricity above this price and you want to go for green hydrogen, well, that's fine. But think about the future and how the sustainability actually of the industry that you are building at the end of the day. So it can be suggested that, and that's what we see, for example, in Saudi, already some portion of the industry will actually move to these places where they can use directly the green hydrogen as a gas. So we see that in the iron sector, for example, in Saudi, a portion of the value chain actually is already, being built there. Now, for the logistic, you need CO2, to produce green methanol. So CO2 needs to be available. So transportation, capture it. So where do you implement that? So that's why it's called, at the end of the day, hard to abate sector. We understand the technology, we understand the different trajectories, but there's still the business model and the private sector, which is wondering where we're going. And I think for the policies, that's where the difficulty is. Because if you start to build infrastructure and the private sector is moving into another direction, and then you start by building pipelines at $1 billion, and so you don't know where to go. So I would say there's still, a lot to be done. Electrolyzers needs to be produced massively the cost to be reduced. And that is driven definitely by the demand. The prices will be, the cost today is above what we have. So then I come to the second way of looking at the price of fossil fuel, which is we are spending $7 trillion a year in externalities, and that is not included in the price of fossil fuel. So how do we balance that and try to create this market? That's something that we need to answer in our policies.
Thanks a lot for your perspective, and particularly also for bringing in the challenge of making green hydrogen price-worthy, bringing down the price for green hydrogen in a way that it becomes economically viable. I think this is quite important, and also highlighting the challenges related to this. Thanks for this. The next the next organization that will come in will be World Wind Energy Association. We have here Stefan Gsenger, the Secretary General, and your question, you will not be surprised, relates to the question of what can the wind sector contribute to help triple renewable energy power capacity by 2030 and achieve 100% renewables. The sooner, the better. So additionally, maybe you can highlight some points which you would wish to have in the discussion, which are not yet perceived as important as they should be.
Thank you very much. Well, indeed, the tripling goal is we see as an interim goal, and how you presented what IRENA calculated that we need 350 gigawatt by end of the decade added capacity. Let's look at the numbers at the moment. We added in 2023 around 120 gigawatt. We published annual half-year statistics end of 2024, which reflect the situation in middle of 2024. According to that, we expect an installed capacity worldwide in 2024 of 150 gigawatts. So that related to 350 gigawatt shows us there is still some room to improve. We need to grow substantially, especially when we look into who is providing the growth, and out of the 150 gigawatt last year, probably around 2/3, 100 gigawatt comes from China. So there are a few countries which are really on track, which are doing a lot, which have a constant growth. Certainly what the industry needs to grow from the 150 to 350 gigawatt, and later then even more, we have to emphasize, is stability and predictability. This is what we see, I mean, now in the last, let's say, 25 years, really constantly only in few countries. Again, let me say, China is showing how it's doing it. There's been constant support for the industry. We see countries like maybe Brazil, which is doing this as well. But aside from that, and also looking into, unfortunately, Europe, there's not been that stability that we need. We need more of that. We hope that there will be no market uncertainties. Introduction of auction has created big troubles in many markets, disrupted that really. So please focus on that, give clear stability so that the industry knows what to do. And let me add to that, of course, when we go beyond a certain share, we need to look into integration. Wind, like solar, will not stand alone. So focus on that aspect as well. Find the right policies, including also incentives for storage, etc. And something I'd like to refer to the session we had yesterday, which I do find is a key aspect of that as well. And we talked about the engagement of communities giving, maximizing benefits, because we see, of course, in the wind sector that there is sometimes people opposing to wind farms for wrong reason because of misinformation. And we know very well where people are the drivers. That is where we see the strongest growth. We need the political, we also need the social support. That is what we would expect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for your contribution and particularly for bringing back the idea of community energy here, which we discussed yesterday indeed, and also for pointing out that disrupted markets are really not encouraging the transformation, so that we have to have an eye on that. Our next presentation will be from the Renewables Grid Initiative. We have the CEO, Antonella Bartalini, here. And also for you, Antonella, I have a question, of course, again, related to the tripling target. So my question is, what initiatives, what strategies, what technologies are you looking at? What are you focusing on at RGI to accelerate the deployment of as much renewables as necessary and possible, and particularly with regard to grid modernization, grid expansion? So try to explain what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Delivering on these targets is not easy. There are multiple challenges. One of the things that we are doing is trying to shift our perspective from the generation to the demand side, because we believe that looking at demand offers incredible opportunities. I'll give you an example. If you want to have 24/7 with renewable, this cannot be a one-way setting where the generations develop these 24/7 capabilities. It has to be an integrated system where the demand contributes at achieving the 24/7. So the demand becomes an active player in the system structure, in the system architecture. And this has a huge impact on how the grid is going to be planned, but also how the generation is going to be planned, when and where. So one of the ideas that we are really interested in is exploring the possibilities of matching the tripling of renewable with a tripling of direct electrification demand, because this would de-risk the generation side. It would bring a lot of innovations that only the demand side at this point in time can deliver, and will also give us much stronger indications on what do we need, when and where, including hydrogen, because hydrogen is definitely something that we need, but it is also a world of inefficiencies. So we need to use it only where it is really needed. And today we don't have a full understanding, not only where it is needed, but also when it is needed. Who really needs that? So this approach would intensify efficiency at system level. This means that it would lead at reducing the overall primary energy demand, because incentivizing electrification, direct electrification with renewables, automatically reduce the amount of energy that it is needed. Electrification is the most efficient fuel that we can use. And to conclude, we should never underestimate that we need to keep prices under control. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonella, and thank you for highlighting particularly that we need efficiency at system level, and also to pointing out the problem of where and how to use green hydrogen and developing ideas. So before I hand over to the next panelist, which is the team leader for sector transformation, Francisco Gaffaro from IRENA, there is a housekeeping thing. We are running out of time, and we have only 15 minutes left for this event. Maybe we can have a few minutes overrun, but definitely not much, because there will be a next session. So I really have to ask everybody who speaks now to be even more strict in timekeeping than the others. Well, they were not bad, but one can be always better. And now the new 3 is 2. Please try to limit your contribution to 2 minutes, as precise and as concise as possible, so that we have at least 1 or 2 contributions from the plenary, from the other participants in the end. So, Irina, I have a question for you, of course. Which technical challenges do you see? How do you address them in the power sector particularly, but I think not only there, to really move forward to a 100% renewable system at stable level, and balancing grid stability, supply, demand, etc. So, up to you in 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
In 2 minutes. Okay, as Raúl mentioned, maybe the major challenges will be found in power systems which are based on variable renewables. So that is solar and wind. And because they are different than conventional generation, then having this reliable supply will necessitate some adjustments. First, we need to consider that the availability of these resources to produce electricity varies with time, and not necessarily this availability matches with the demand. Today, through enhanced power system operation practices, increased use of interconnection, use of battery storage, and some demand flexibility, several power systems have reached levels with variable renewables, so solar and wind, between 30 and 60%. Even power systems belonging to large interconnected areas have reached 100% at limited periods of time. However, there may be a point closer to that 100% mark, I mean 100% delivering power all the time with this type of resources, where these flexibility measures or enablers used today may not be sufficient to increase that share and achieving this last mile. Why? Because the available resources may not be able to cover for this variability or for their variability. If 100% of the supply of electricity is going to come from renewables, I mean, that's where the point. In that case, that supply must be available all the time. So what we mentioned, the 24/7. And we need to cover seasonal changes and even longer climate cycles. So in cases where no further interconnections are available to guarantee this balance between supply and demand, a combination of additional solutions not fully deployed now or at early commercial stages, like long duration storage solutions, longer term demand participation, as mentioned before, and new options for dispatchable power plants, like thermal plants powered by hydrogen or biofuels, may be required to maintain this balance. This exact combination of additional flexibility measures not yet implemented, as well as their cost implications and the breakpoint when they will be needed, is largely depending on the characteristics of each power system, and is something that needs to be planned ahead of time. And then to say, again, maybe to mention, the identification of these solutions requires really detailed, specific planning studies tailored for each power system. And then it's also the opportunity to say that 100% is one decarbonization way, but there are also other ways to decarbonize the power systems through the use of other sources. Finally, when talking about 100% renewable systems, power systems, besides the needs for flexibility that I was discussing, it is important also to consider the topic of power system stability and system control. As the share of inverter-based generation grows, there may be the stability of the system may be affected, and new solutions also not yet commercially deployed, like the so-called grid-forming inverters, will be required. So these type of technologies are still at early commercial stages, and standardization on further research is needed. So to conclude, I hope I did it in the required time. So we need plan. We need to consider also to give time to develop these additional not only technologies but also business models that will enable the operation 24/7 with renewables and mainly with solar and wind. So thank you.
Thank you for your contribution, and thank you for highlighting the work and asking some questions about how this can be done. Actually, it was twice 2 minutes, but as the host, I didn't want to interrupt you. Maybe this sets the scene for the next two participants. So we have two representatives from civil society among us, and we should certainly hear them. The first is Climate Action Network, Stefan Singer, Senior Global Specialist for Climate Science and Energy at CAN International. And of course, Stefan, my question is closely related to your role and your organization's role. So what are the most critical barriers to achieve a 100% renewable energy system, and how can civil society contribute to make this happen?
Thank you, Rainer, and thanks for the valuable contribution by everyone. Let me focus on the key recommendation I have to governments who are here and elsewhere, what they can do to help to implement the pathway to 100% renewables, where a crucial step is achieving the tripling of renewables and the doubling of energy efficiency. Often forgotten, unfortunately, but it's a fundamental part of the trajectory to 1.5C. First, the recommendation from CAN International, representing 2,000 NGOs worldwide in 130 countries, is that the OECD, as a group, should implement the tripling of capacity. It's a matter of fairness and equity. They need to go, I'm not saying first, we have to move, but they have to lead on issues because they have the capacities and the money to go to 100% renewables. Would be the result in the power sector, in the OECD, if they were tripled in the OECD. Look at the numbers from the IEA. So implement the existing GST commitment, and they will go to already to 100% renewables in the power sector as a big step forward to coming to 100% renewables globally in terms of equity and fairness. Second point for me is also to the OECD, we need increased financing to overcome the global disparity in financing the energy transition, not only for renewables, but also for energy efficiency, grids and storage in poorer countries, because there's a huge discrepancy. We have heard about this one in the funding, and grants and concessional loans are fundamental precondition for unlocking private capital eventually, because private capital currently is risk averse and shy. Third thing is include in the NDCs. 2025 is the year of the NDC. Include your contribution as individual countries or as a group for the European Union. How do you contribute to tripling renewables, doubling energy efficiency? Because currently the assessment of IRENA and by us as well shows that the NDCs are falling fundamentally short of achieving the tripling as a target globally as a group. Less than 50% of the necessary achievement for tripling renewables by 2030 is in the NDCs currently. All the countries, some better, some less, and some even haven't mentioned them. Last point is, include, please, the necessary legislation for doubling energy efficiency globally to 4%, as agreed also in the GST. We're missing in the NDC strong legislative pieces for the housing sector, for the transport sector, for the industry sector, for growing jointly as a group, individually as you want. This is a kind of win-win-win solution. Energy efficiency is very often forgotten fuel. Include this in the NDC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stefan. And the last panelists will be the World Future Council. Lena Dente is the Senior Program Manager. And Lena, the question I have for you is, of course, what key steps are needed for a just energy transition to drive this, and how can we ensure that employment growth, skills development, etc., keep up with the needed things?
Yeah, all in
Try
2
in 2 minutes, please.
All right. So maybe the starting point for us is at the WFC is that policies are intergenerational shaping tools, not quick fixes, despite the urgency that we face. So maybe some suggestions for us to consider. So the renewable energy transition is, of course, a systems level challenge and opportunity, but it needs a systems level approach. And if we reframe it this way, it lets us reimagine policy processes and premises, and it lets us include approaches like creating cross-committee processes, focusing on cross-party policy creation, including cross-sectoral stakeholders, so that it helps us expose current structures and procedures that may not be adequate to support a just transformation. This also helps us to understand that policy making for the transition shouldn't only be top-down, but it should be adaptable to local and regional contexts. If we think about stakeholders in the city versus rural versus coastal versus inland, economically developed versus non-economically developed, these are stakeholders with different needs. And so it necessitates a multi-stakeholder approach, including, of course, indigenous communities, the youth, the elderly, and in that we ensure gender representation. And this isn't to slow down the policymaking process, but to future-proof it so that we do the groundwork that lets us understand the context. This also means that just is a malleable term depending on who you're asking and where you sit. And lastly, of course, no conversation on RE is complete without addressing finance. We've heard it today, yesterday, for a while. Reduce the cost of capital, increase access, more concessional monies, more private sector engagement, of course, more de-risking. And this requires us to have a fresh look at the structures and legal frameworks in place. One example, I spoke with a parliamentarian yesterday from the Global South, and he told me that they just recently in their parliament passed a law that now allows privately owned mini-grids to sell their electricity back to the grid and back to consumers. It wasn't possible before. So this now, of course, incentivizes jobs and more investments. Skipping ahead, let's just say that, of course, for the jobs, for the green creation of the jobs, for the fears related to it, for the upskilling, reskilling needed, including generations that have not been educated maybe up to the level we want, and ensuring that the training that is coming for the innovations over the horizon means we have to reconsider the educational systems in place. Are they meeting the needs? Do they know the trajectory of the sector? Are they able to address the fears and misinformation that are out there, not only for policymakers, but for the constituents? So let's remind ourselves that these policies we put into place today have short and long-term impacts. We have a chance to rebuild a system that can support current and future generations by shifting the lens that we apply to create approaches that are adaptable, inclusive of all stakeholder concerns, and that are robust and future just.
Thanks a lot, Lena, and thanks for trying to convey as much of the message that was needed. Thanks a lot. So actually, as I said, unfortunately, we are more or less out of time and we'll be kicked out of this room in a few minutes. So thanks a lot for all of your contributions, member state side, experts in producer side and civil society as well. And of course, this is not the end of the discussion. We really encourage you to continue this here during the event and in other contexts, and of course provide us with some input. Let me just try, as imperfect as this can be, to very, very briefly sum up what happened here, what we take from it. Let me put it this way. We, in this case, means the coalition, and of course, we as the coalition put a little bit of impact on IRENA, and so I think this will be a productive way. So, first point, first block would be, I heard from member states, from different areas, different contexts, with different experience. I will mention a few catchwords which I think we take for the discussion in other ones. One indeed is the high importance of electrification. You said it explicitly, others concurred with that in many respects. The increase of electricity demand reaching out to other sectors definitely is another important one. Another important one which I take, and I think think this was the colleague from Kenya who mentioned this, that it's not only wind and solar, there are other renewables, hydro, geothermal, bioenergy, etc., etc. This is quite important. And another one which I take, storage, not to forget storage, not only because this will be a major discussion up to the COP in Brazil, but because this is really one important element to keep the grid stable and to keep supply and demand well balanced. We heard this several times. We also heard that we have more narratives why renewables are necessary and good than just climate. They provide economic development, economic competitiveness. Ditte from the EU mentioned that energy security, all these things are things which renewable energy can provide. The notion of resilience of systems, resilience of supply chains was mentioned here. And again, the fact we can and we must deliver energy 24/7 everywhere. From the non-government side, my key takeaways were, on the one hand, we need to improve even more the competitiveness of the renewables, and improving this is one thing, scaling up, and the other one is, of course, putting a price on carbon and letting the dark side of the energy sector pay for the detriment they cause. Then, of course, what I also heard, the tripling target is an extremely important driver. Everybody referenced this, but this is only an interim target. We have to proceed afterwards, and maybe at least in some places we have to be faster than we are so far. This is what I heard. Finally, disruptive markets disrupt the transformation. So let's make sure we have stability. Then the question of finance, really to make finance cheap, affordable finance available to those who need it. And there is certainly a specific focus on the global south in this aspect. And finally or not, if those countries who committed to the tripling target, all of them, try to be part of this and not wait for those who have not yet done anything, and particularly those who have developed economies would also try to triple their own capacities, this would really help significantly. So,
NREL and GIZ, 1 minute.
So I really can, maybe I repeated, sorry. I tried this very quick wrap up. I know I forgot many things because you can't do everything in 2 minutes. I tried. I really cannot give anybody more minutes because the next are already standing outside. So thanks a lot for your contributions. Thanks a lot for your patience. And thanks a lot for further working with us. And I think your work will definitely be input.
You want to test it? Testing, 1, 2. Yeah, thanks. 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 You okay? Shaban? Oh, sorry.